When you approach someone and you ask them if you can check their registration status, there are a few tricky situations. One is when they say, I can't vote. Okay, so if they say they can't vote, there's really three main reasons. Either they're under 18, which you can usually tell or just ask them. They're not a citizen, or they're a felon under supervision or on probation or parole, also called on paper. There are two other uncommon reasons that they've been ordered incapable to vote by a judge, or they are gambling on the outcome. For the most part of the DMV, you don't have to worry about asking people if they're a citizen because they cannot do business at the DMV unless they have legal status. However, sometimes people are accompanying others and they may have illegal status. If you feel that you would make someone uncomfortable by asking them outright if they're a citizen, we do have a list of questions in Spanish that will allow them to easily say whether or not they are eligible to vote. Given the high incarceration rate in Wisconsin, you're likely to encounter quite a few people who have been charged with a felony. A lot of times people will just decline to speak with you at all, but sometimes they'll say, I can't vote. Wait until you're in a place that is somewhat private, and you could quietly ask if they're on paper. If they say, no, I'm off paper, then you can inform them that they can vote. And a lot of times they were informed that they could not vote when they left prison, but they were never told that they could vote once they went off supervision. So this is a really nice thing that we can provide. If they say that they're on paper, we also have other things to provide for them. One is just information about EXPO, Ex-Incarcerated Persons Organizing, a group that offers legal help for people on probation and parole and other services. They also have a petition to unlock the vote for people on supervision. This petition is going to be sent to Governor Evers in January of 2023. So I will put an update below of what happens with it. But if it's still ongoing, you could give them a copy and tell them that they can have their friends and family sign it, and then they can return it to the address at the top. Another tricky situation, someone answers, I don't vote, or do I have to? Then what I do is I have a couple things I like to point out. One thing is that usually these are young people, and I will let them know that there's a lot of older people voting and not a lot of younger people voting. There's so many younger people that don't vote. And I just try to share that with them and let them know that if they don't vote, then issues that are important to young people are not going to be taken care of the way that issues are taken care of for older people, because candidates care about who votes and they know who votes. Note that in partisan voter registration efforts, we can discuss issues. We simply cannot promote candidates or parties. So I let them know that things like climate change that are going to affect them and their future children deeply are issues that may not be so important to people that are old, that all those voting older people. Things like reproductive rights, workers' rights, minimum wage, cancellation of student debt. Then I tell them that Wisconsin is a swing state. I explain what a swing state is, that whatever their affiliation, there are states that go one way or the other, red or blue, and that swing state is purple. So however they feel, they're going to be deciding the fate of the nation, because there are senators and representatives up for re-election, and whichever people that they support or whichever issues they support and want to push forward, they're going to be the deciding factor. When people say, I've never voted, I say, oh, well, this is your opportunity and we can set you up. And here, I can give you this information. All of our cards have the vote411.org website on them. And that's the League of Women Voters information website where people can find out about candidates and what the candidates believe in. Once people know that they can have access to information about candidates and that they might be aligned with one or the other, they are typically okay with voting. And also, I'll almost always get those people set up to get their ballots at home. So they'll have time to sit and study the candidates and figure out exactly how they want to vote. In the process of editing this video, I realized that I forgot to address how to deal with people saying no. When I first started, I was not paying as close attention to people's cues. I had a couple experiences that really changed my whole process. One time when I asked my typical question, could I check your registration status? Sometimes people are removed from the voter rolls and they're not aware of it. And the man said, I'm good. And I did not read his cues properly. And I proceeded to say, oh, well, would you like an absentee ballot? And he said to me, when I say I'm good, I mean I'm good. That's when I really realized I needed to pay much closer attention to people. A lot of times when people say I'm good, at this point, I say, oh, would you like an absentee ballot? And they say, no, thank you. And I move, I ask them if they want a sticker. I continue talking to them because sometimes, even though they said I'm good with the registration, they say, oh yeah, I would like to set up the absentee ballot. You really have to get used to the people that you're working with. In that same week, I had this woman where I asked her about registration, and I think I continued with another question, and she got really angry, and she said, I'm 50 years old, voting for 30 years. I don't need your help. She was pissed off because I was not reading her. Now, when people say I'm registered, I give them positive reinforcement. It's not like I don't trust that they are registered, because I think that maybe I was giving the impression that I didn't trust them. I say, awesome, I'm so glad that you're registered. What do you want your ballot to come to you in the mail? And I haven't had those kind of problems again. So really, it's important to read people's signals and learn as you go what those signals mean. So if their body language says back off, just follow your instincts and move on to someone else. Okay, here are a few advanced techniques and just little tricks that you just need to know. When someone says, oh, I'm a voter, then I'll sometimes ask if they voted in the last election. So I'll call the election by name. So if it was the mayoral election or the primary, I'll just say, oh, did you vote in the August primary that we just had? And they'll say, no, I didn't vote in that one. And so then I might want to push a little harder to encourage them to vote by mail. And it gives me a sense of how much I have to work with them to make sure that they're really on board with voting, how much I need to talk to them anymore. In Wisconsin, if people need their address updated, it's really easier to do that once the DMV has their address updated. MyVote relies on the DMV database for its address data. So in order to update an address in MyVote, the address must already be on file with the DMV. So if you're at the DMV and they're going there for something at the DMV where they're going to get their address updated, an ID, a title, a driver's license, a registration, then when they walk out, they'll have a piece of paper to show that, and we can scan it and use paper to get them registered. If they are not there for any process that will update their address, then if you have time and enough volunteers, go ahead and help them change their address on the DMV website. When you go through MyVote, it'll have a link to where you can change address in the DMV. The update is practically immediate, so you can update it on the DMV and then you can go right into MyVote and update the address, but just make sure it's the exact same address. Unless they just happen to have something showing their current address. For example, they might have a driver's license that's valid on their phone, like a picture of their driver's license or state ID, or they might have a bill or something in their car if they're willing to go out to their car to get it. Note that if you're using a scanner, you can't scan an image that's on a phone, so just use your phone and send that image to who's ever coordinating your voter registration efforts. Note that an envelope or junk mail cannot be used for proof of residence. If it's a utility bill or bank account, a statement, it should have the account number on it. If they seem like gung-ho voters and they're interested in helping, I will give them a card that has information about how to vote, like perhaps a QR code for the website, the My Vote website. And that way they can give this to friends and family that are not registered or people that have moved that need to re-register. This kind of card is really great for everyone. People in a hurry that want to register on their own, young people that really like to use QR codes, people that need the 411.org website, or just for friends and family. So really, we like to give these cards to just about everyone. Another more advanced technique is using two different browsers. So you could use Chrome and Safari and keep My Vote open in both of those browsers, so that if you're working with someone and then they get called to the counter, and perhaps like you've been setting up absentee ballot for them, then you can keep that on Safari and move to Chrome to work with other people. And when that person's done at the counter, you go back to Safari and finish up with their absentee ballot requests. As I was editing, I did a little bit more investigation and looked into different asks and why some are more successful than others. One of the issues is that if you ask, are you registered to vote, or would you like to register to vote? Those are yes/no questions, so they don't really lead to any extra discussion. If the person declines, you're kind of stuck. Some of the other asks were, have you moved since you last voted? Do you know where to find your sample ballot, which is good when you're close to an election. The other one being, would you like to check your voter registration status? Because sometimes people have been removed from the voter rolls and they're not aware of it. It's kind of a mouthful, but it does seem to work pretty well. Technically, these are all yes/no questions, but these alternatives do seem to engender more discussion.